Hi, my name is Andi. I'm a chaotic reader, but today I will attempt to put together a little TBR list for the next few months. Last year I did a top 5 books I want to read in 2024 list and ended up reading 3 books out of the 5, so around 60%, which I take as an achievement because I'm a big mood reader. Also, I want to change my reading habits a little bit. I try to consume less social media content on books because I have the feeling I'm more likely to reach for books that are currently hyped and oftentimes new, but maybe won't have the longevity over the books that might have been published 5 or so years ago, but stood the test of the time and are still regarded highly today. It's a bit of a tangent, but I feel like a lot of online content creation turned into chasing novelty. Because obviously something that's new, something that's presented as life-changing, something that's presented as the next big thing that not many people know about yet, is going to get the attention of the people, and that's just gonna snowball the algorithms. I have to say, I myself kind of fell into this and ended up reading supposed next big sensation books that left me very much disappointed. So in the new year, I will try to be a bit more conscious of what is considered a good book by a large majority of people for a longer time period, and what is attracting everyone's interest at the moment, but maybe only for the fact that it is a new release. That doesn't mean that I won't consider picking up new releases, but maybe I will be a bit more careful with them, you know what I mean? Anyway, you are not here for me yapping about this. You are here for the little reading list that hopefully inspires your TBR along the way. Nothing says winter reading like a story told over centuries that is supposedly an emotional punch in the gut, am I right? I included The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue in my most intimidating books on my TBR, but I have a feeling that finally it is time for me to brave the 500 plus pages and pick it up. The premise of a young woman who makes a deal for immortality but pays the price of being forgotten by everyone she meets until she meets someone who magically remembers her sounds very interesting to me. I've also heard it takes place in France, but also in other places of the world, so it should be a nice read over the winter months where everything is grey and gloomy here in Austria. If you are like me and you had this on your shelf for 2 or even 3 years by now, I wish you the courage to pick it up this year. My most read genre to this day is fantasy, but I'm really starting to get tired of the oftentimes lazy word building, cliche character dynamics, and frankly underwhelming central conflicts that can be found in a lot of newer fantasy books, at least based on my experience. I hope that reading from Kingfisher will be the spark that will reignite my love for the genre. Specifically, I have my eyes on The Paladin's Grace as the first book I want to read from her, which is a part of a series with 4 books, I believe, which could work out really well. Not that I'm very good at reading sequels, even when I love the first book, but maybe this one will change that. What drew me to this story is the elements of it. We have a paladin main character who is left in some kind of emotional turmoil after his god died, meets a fugitive, there are spies, assassinations, some kind of serial killer murder mystery plotline, and also a romance subplot filled with funny moments. Based on these, I'm looking forward to jumping into an intriguing, action-packed world, but also looking forward to seeing the characters' inner worlds and the issues they struggle with. Besides Paladin's Grace, I also have Nettle and Bone from the author on my shelf, which is a standalone, but I want to try reading Paladin's Grace first. Talking about fantasy books that could reignite my love for the genre, I very much want to get into reading Brandon Sanderson. It's fascinating how he talks about storytelling, so I want to see if I would like his writing style and character building. A safe place to start would be The Emperor's Soul, which is a fantasy novella centered around a soul forger who is currently imprisoned but she's the Emperor's only hope for a new soul before it gets out that an assassin got to him. With around 150 pages, this would be an easy way to get a taste of his writing style. I also have the physical copy of Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, A, because I find the cover absolutely gorgeous, and B, because of the story. The main plotline is two people coming together from very different worlds, and they have to work together to save their world from disaster. Which on the surface is a very basic and maybe overdone chain of events, so I'm very curious how Brandon Sanderson spins it his own way and maybe adds fresh twists or elements into it. But what really interests me is his Mistborn series with the Final Empire as the first book. This kind of surprised me when I looked it up, the name Final Empire as the first installment, but hey, it got my attention. I think the author himself pitched it as a heist story set in a world where the villain has won. I'd very much like to read that. I loved Six of Crows, but I was let down by the Gilded Wolves and the group dynamic there, so I'm curious what kind of web of relationships and conflicts is in Mistborn tied to the heist that they need to pull off. Given that it's winter still until March, I need some cozy and whimsical reads, and for that I have the Full Moon Coffee Shop on my TBR, which was a Christmas gift from my husband. As you can see on the cover, the plot includes cats, who apparently run a magical coffee shop and do astrological chart reading for their customers. We follow multiple characters as they grapple with their own issues, but get life-changing advice from a charismatic cat in the cafe. I've read Days at the Morisaki bookshop and How Do You Live as Japanese fiction books last year and Lonely Castle in the Mirror the year before, but Japanese storytelling can be very much a hit or miss for me. Sometimes I find it rather disjointed or too introspective. Other times it really elevates the story for me. Let's see how I feel about the Full Moon Coffee Shop. Should be a nice break between all my fantasy reads this winter. I feel like with the last book on my list, I go a little bit against what I said at the beginning of the video, because Blood Over Bright Haven is now gathering attention on book social media almost 2 years after it was published. I heard about the author's other work, The Sword of Kaigen, first, which received a lot of praise as an epic high fantasy, so I naturally became interested in this one as well, but kind of forgot about it until now that it's resurfacing. Especially as it's pitched as a dark academia brimming with mystery, tragedy. It's said to be for fans of Leigh Bardugo, V.E. Schwab and Full Metal Alchemist. I'm so curious why Full Metal Alchemist is mentioned in comparison. I know relatively little about the plot, only that we follow an orphan girl who is studying magic and sets out to uncover ancient and dangerous secrets, together with a janitor who was previously a hunter and witnessed some dark things. It is also a high fantasy setting, dealing with themes of seeking the truth, legacy, misogyny, sacrifice, and righteousness. Sounds like an ideal read for the time when the sun sets at like 5 p.m. and all I want to do is curl up under a blanket and get lost in a magical world every evening. And with that, I think my little list is complete. I'm a slow reader and I have a full-time job, so I usually read around 2 to 3 books per month, so these 5 books are realistic for the remaining winter months. Bless you. But in case you have any recommendations based on the books or the themes I just mentioned, feel free to leave a comment below, thank you. I hope I could inspire you to add something new to your TBR. See you in my next video. Until then, take care. Bye!